Welcome to Italics, television for the Italian-American experience. I'm your host, Anthony Tamburri. This episode of Italics covers the New York Galas of two major Italian-American organizations, NOIAW and NIAF. Let's go to the NOIAW Luncheon.
NOIAW is one of the pillars, as I said, because I really want to praise here the work. You are a group of enlightened leader women, and you are doing great things on culture, on language, on scholarship. Please know that you will always count, you can count on our support. You know that also our embassy in Washington, and by the way, I bring here all the most affettuosi saluti of the ambassador of Italy, who had to stay in Washington, of course, with all this important political delegation. Grazie mille. You are wonderful. Viva le donne italiano-americane. Viva le donne italiano-americane. Grazie.
Vita's accomplishments span a career as a teacher, scholar, and university administrator. She received her doctorate in social psychology from a good school in Chicago called Northwestern, and has since embarked on a 39-year career and counting, starting at Hunter College, rising to the rank of provost at Hunter College, and finally in her current position as the university provost and executive vice chancellor of CUNY. Her continued dedication to developing the work of others. You will see a commitment to advancing the careers of women, especially in the sciences, and a commitment to making CUNY a cherished and valuable organization. Vita has been critical in creating an effective organization of the provost across all 23 units of CUNY. She remained always dedicated to CUNY and its students, and always recognized, most important, the ability to let others shine. She is the epitome of a provost, and has been a pleasure and a privilege to work by her side for all these years. It is no surprise to me that CUNY selected her to be the executive vice president and university provost for the entire system. Under her leadership, I am anxious to see where CUNY advances.
I want to thank NOIAW and Chair Maria Tamburri and the co-chairs of this luncheon, Marianne Mattone and Robin Imbibo, for honoring me as an Italian-American woman for my work at CUNY, the institution of my life and the only place I ever wanted to work. And I want to thank my CUNY colleagues and my beloved friends and family for coming to be with me today. It means a great deal to me to have you here. And CUNY means a great deal to me, as it does to millions of New Yorkers over the century, including, I know, many of you in this room. Here's why. CUNY is as essential to New York City as the subways. 3 months ago, many of you may have noticed an article in the New York Times and other places that, stating that 5 of the nation's leading economists found that in a study of economic mobility, found that CUNY is the leading university system in the country, the leading set of colleges in the country in promoting intergenerational mobility, propelling poor people into the middle class. Of the top 10 colleges in the nation that launch students from the lowest 2 quintiles of family income into the top 3 quintiles, 5 are CUNY colleges. CUNY launches more. So CUNY launches more disadvantaged students into the middle class and beyond than the 8 Ivy League schools plus Stanford, MIT, Duke, and the University of Chicago combined. What that says, colleagues, is that CUNY is today what it has been since the founding of the Free Academy, now City College, in 1847. what it was for my father, Vito Caroli, the son of a widowed mother, with an 8th grade education from Sicily, but no end of ambition for her oldest son, who was admitted to City College in 1940. My dad never finished, but the fact is, he remained proud to his dying day that he was admitted to City College, that he attended a college where, as he would always say, without irony, the girls needed a 91 average to get in, and the boys needed an 88. And I know similar stories at Brooklyn, and in any case. Okay, so getting into City College, attending for a year or two, changed not just the trajectory of his life, but also of mine and my daughters, and now my grandson. So I am very proud to work for CUNY. This audience is full of seasoned, successful people, many with CUNY ties, and also with many aspirational young people, including our outstanding scholarship winners, who are now thinking about their own careers. As Bill said, the focus of my scholarly and professional work has been on advancing women. For years, I co-led with distinguished Professor Virginia Valian and Dr. Anne Marie Nichols-Granenko, who's here with me today. I co-led the Gender Equity Project at Hunter, and it had as its focus advancing women in science. Well, I now know that much of what we learned in the Gender Equity Project applies to men as well as women, and applies to people within and beyond the sciences. And for the young aspiring professionals in the audience, and for those of us who care about advancing women, and I think together I'm accounting for everybody in the room, I have just a few nuggets I would like to share. One of them is that gender matters. There are psychological as well as structural reasons that certain people get opportunities, certain people get heard, certain people advance. We, men and women both, have schemas or stereotypes about men and women, like men are competent, women are nurturing. Men are strong, women are soft. Men are rational and do things for reasons, women are emotional. The schemas for men are much more compatible with talent, leadership, and success than the schemas for women. That means that men start out with and accumulate over time advantages in the workplace, even seemingly small, trivial instances of unequal treatment and outcome, some of them unconscious, as when women's comments are ignored or interrupted, add up. Just this week, the New York Times featured a study that showed that the female justices on the Supreme Court are interrupted many more times than the male justices, even though they speak much less to begin with. So, even women at the highest levels of power experience what those of us in this room do. So over time, molehills become mountains, and they lead to the systematic devaluation of working women, slower advances, lower ceilings, lower pay. Gender schemas are so powerful that when a woman's competence or success is so obvious that no one can deny it, that woman will pay a price in likability. She will be rated as less and treated as less likable. Perhaps you have seen this yourself in your life. So fortunately, there are things we can do, and I'll be brief, but again, for young women contemplating your own future, my best advice is form a circle of advisors. Start today. Start with the people in this room. Rather than a single mentor, what people need today are a group of people, a diverse group of mentors, role models, advisors, peers, a group that will change over time according to your needs. Get yourself a group of people you can call on when you need to. Make sure that men and women are in your circle. because again, gender matters, and reach out across other categories like age, ethnicity, and background. Diversity has benefits. It'll challenge your assumptions, spark new ideas, and broaden and deepen your cultural competencies. And you need those things to succeed in this century and in this city. And you'll need relationships. It's relationships as much as anything else that transform lives. I also advise young women seek internships, apprenticeships, research and project collaborations, and other forms of authentic experiential learning. Everything we know about how people learn and change is that there's no better way to learn than by doing. Authentic experiential learning literally changes the brain. The neuroscientists in this audience know. It teaches you what you really love and what you're good at. And if you're on an academic path you love, persist. Get the next degree, and get the next one if you need it to compete in your field. There are not nearly as many on-ramps to degrees as there are off-ramps, and women who leave school without a credential will pay a price in later earnings. More often than not, the best thing you can do for your family is complete your degree and get that first job. And one day somebody will say about you, nevertheless, she persisted, and that's important. For those of us who are seasoned professionals, my advice is simple. Vouch for other women. In meetings and informal conversations, we can do a world of good for women simply by acknowledging their contributions and standing up for them. Research shows that even a few well-chosen words in introducing somebody, a new teaching assistant in a class, a new member of a team. Some of you introduced me to many others of you in the room today. A simple good word could have a lasting effect on how people relate to that person and how you're evaluated. Study your past letters of recommendation. Everybody in this room writes letters of recommendation for women and men. Do you see a difference in the letters you write for women and men? Research shows letters written for men are longer, have different kinds of words or adjectives. Men are iconoclastically brilliant. Women are responsible and hardworking. Men's research is innovative and groundbreaking. Women's research is solid and meticulous. Watch for these differences and compensate for them. And finally, nominate women for awards, keynote addresses, jobs, leadership, and distinguished positions. Because of gender schemas and implicit bias, we all tend to think of men first for these honors. But often, when we try, we can come up with great women for these positions. And this is one of the most important ways we could see change. We can literally change the face of professional success by thinking of women for these honors. Our scholarship winners are here today because someone who knew them, who saw potential in them they didn't see in themselves, nominated them. I'm standing here before you today because CUNY's chancellor offered me the job of a lifetime based on encouragement, including from some people in this room, and recommendations, including from some of you in this room, and because others, including those in this room, sought me out for the award. I can't tell you how much I appreciate that, and before that, I was promoted by inspirational mentors and role models and colleagues, and starting with my wonderfully typical, utterly unique Italian-American family. Colleagues, thank you so much for this honor. I can't tell you how much it means to me. Thank you to NOIAW.
It certainly is my privilege to introduce you to Dr. Lori Adavissimo. Just recently I asked her, well, why did you choose a career of being a physician? And she said she really wanted to help people and make a difference. And she went to her biology teacher and said, I want to have a career in healthcare. And he recommended that she go into medicine. As she was studying medicine, one of her rotations was at Memorial Sloan Kettering, right here in New York City. And she realized that the place that she wanted to do and the people that she wanted to care for were people who were suffering with cancer. After that, she went to work in a local hospital. And there she met some of our hospice patients. I'm the executive director for Hospice Care Network. And it was one of our nurses who said to Lori, "You just have a way with these patients and families. You really should go into hospice." And fortunately for us, that's exactly what she did. Many people think that when someone comes at the end of their life, there's not much that one can do in medicine as a physician. But I often say that there's a great deal that one can do. There's a science and an art to really caring for people at the end of life. The art of it is that, they very much need someone to hear them, to really care for them, to comfort them. And really, Lori excels at that. In fact, she was recently asked by Northwell, which we are a part of, to really co-lead an effort to help people with an advanced illness. And one very specific thing she does is she helps to teach other healthcare professionals how to really listen and how to have that conversation. So she's not only touching the thousands of people that we care for in hospice, but she is touching tens of thousands of people by training other healthcare professionals to really have the empathy and skill that she has. Now, what's the science of caring for people at the end of life? Yes, people think that, well, no, there is no cure at that point, but there really is a great deal that a physician can do. And I often say that the expertise that a physician has to have at the end of caring for people at the end of life is probably much more significant or much harder than anything else. Because yes, that person's body is changing rapidly. And yet the fear that people have at that point is of suffering. And if we can change that and make them feel comfortable and make them feel that someone cares about them and really ensures that to the best of their ability that they alleviate that suffering, then that is a great physician. And that is who Lori Adavissimo is.
I was very fortunate to have strong women role models of various walks of life who taught me how to maintain my own identity, pursue my dreams, be strong, and persevere. Looking back to my high school days, I remember when I first told my parents and grandparents about wanting to go to medical school. College and medical school. Everyone was sitting around the table as I told them about my plans to become a doctor. I'll never forget my grandfather's face. He almost fell off his chair. He said, "Lori, going to college, to medical school?" He said to my dad, "Andy, is she crazy? Are you crazy? She will be smarter than her man." Obviously, he was referring to my potential husband. He couldn't get his head around this fact. Like, how could this granddaughter of mine be going to medical school, wanting to go to college? My dad reassured him that it would be okay, that I would be self-sufficient. It was the right thing to do. Well, let me tell you, despite his initial shock and concerns, he was the proudest grandfather at graduation. I encourage each of you to live your dream, connect, inspire, and empower others through your endeavors.
It's my pleasure, absolutely my pleasure, to introduce our friend of NOIAW Award. I won't look at him because I start to cry. Mr. Ficalora is, you read his bio and you can see all the great things. He started as a teller and he put himself through school and all his accomplishments. But most of all, they don't do justice who the man is. They say, oh, he's a philanthropist. He's not a philanthropist. He's a humanitarian. He has been and is always a way to get involved not only in public institutional charities, but numerous causes, whether for mental health or for physical illnesses, educational or cultural. I met Joe when we were both trustees on the board for the Queens Library, which was a significantly big operation in New York and the United States. And he headed many of our fundraising. Actually, he was the head of the foundation. And my big mouth and his money, and of course Joe's money, my husband's money, we did very well. when I first joined the NOIAW board, I approached him and I said, can you please give me a scholarship? And he said, all right. And I said, Joseph, did you hear what I said? And he said, all right. And I said, oh my God, he's really great, isn't he? When someone is in need for a cause, or somebody he doesn't even hesitate, his response is, how can I help?
My parents very much wanted us to be the American component of Italian American. They wanted to make sure that we were somewhat different than everybody else in the neighborhood that I grew up in. Of the 13 or so people that I spent most of my time growing up with, only 3 of them survived into their early 20s. So it's not a great place from which we came, but all 3 of us, and then that's 2 outside of the 13, but all 3 of us wound up, one as a principal, one as an executive in Shell, and myself as ultimately an executive in a bank that had nothing other than wasps before they recognized that even Catholics could be executives, let alone Italians. The fact is the bank had a very, very, very long history, and Italian wasn't really part of that history. And the reality also is that succeeding in an environment like that in many ways requires that you depend upon yourself, not upon others. You take advantage of the opportunities that are presented, and things have a tendency to work out if you really strive to do the right thing. So I very much appreciate your recognition that success can come, from individual effort, despite whatever the background may have been. And I think many of the people here have already, and in the past, have said that they're very, very honored and pleased to be recognized, for what they've accomplished. And I very much want to say that being able to accomplish being a good person, a good Italian, a good American, is far, far, far more important than how much money you have, or what prestige, or what involvements you may have. Even in giving, it's nice to be able to give and to want to give and to share. But all those things, come from establishing a belief in a way of life that fundamentally is good. And I get the sense that the people sitting in this room all have the same idea, that they're here because they're part of a group of better and more involved people, and they like being part of that group. And it's not a bad group for us all to be part of. I truly do appreciate this opportunity to be somewhat different than the others that have preceded me in speaking to this organization year after year, and certainly over the course of time, making it appropriate for this organization to exist. And I think that's really good for us all. We're all here because we believe that the things that bring us together are worth bringing us together. So that's a great thing. Questions? No.
For the New York Gala of the National Italian American Foundation, let me hear the Italians make some noise!
The most beautiful page between the Italian Americans and Italy, between Italy and the US, has still to be written. So if the partnership between Italy and New York is so solid, is so strong, is so natural, is also because of you. Grazie NIAF, viva la NIAF, viva l'Italia, viva gli Italoamericani, e viva New York.
The 2017 NIAF East Coast Gala honored Anthony Camberata Jr., Anthony Scaramucci, as well as Vincent Sino.
Let me tell you about one Italian-American who was a mentor. My father worked in the A&P as a butcher. An older woman named Jenny would come into the store two or three times a week, and my father would talk to her. He was very excited when he told her I was accepted into law school. The next day, Jenny's husband came into the store, Judge Jacob Triarci of the Superior Court of New Jersey. He congratulated my father and said, when your son graduates, he can be my last law clerk. That was it. Never met me, didn't know if I even had graduated college on time, which I hadn't. He was extending a helping hand to Alcino. I never heard anything until I started my third year of law school when I received a letter from the judge appointing me as his clerk. I once asked him why had he never interviewed me. He said, "My wife knew and respected your father. That's all I needed."
Also honored were Vernon and Shirley Hill.
Two cultures together are building value. Two families, two countries, one new vision. You have turned on the light of the lighthouse of the harbor of Venice, Murano, one of the 7 symbols of made in Italy in the world. And that light has a name, Seguso Vetridarte, with 620 years and 23 generations of heritage. This light will give strength to many and lead the way.
Maria Vula was bestowed the Mario Cuomo Award.
I took note as a child that Mario Cuomo appointed the first woman to New York's highest court, first as associate judge and later New York's first woman chief judge. I noted his opposition to capital punishment, which was ahead of the times, but eventually New York came around to his correct point of view. He gave a foundational speech at Notre Dame University about a woman's right to make her own reproductive health decisions free of governmental interference. He famously spoke truth to power at the convention when he destroyed the myth that everyone was prospering equally in a city on the hill by speaking honestly about a tale of two cities. I was actually privileged to have met Mario Cuomo later in my life. I was privileged to spend time with him when his son, Andrew Cuomo, was running for Attorney General. I was privileged to witness his great intelligence, his deep knowledge of and respect for the law. He was a true lawyer's lawyer with a heart of gold. I was then privileged to later work for Andrew Cuomo when he was Attorney General, and to now work for him again as the Superintendent of the New York State Department of Financial Services.
Rosella Raga was honored for community leadership.
Nearly a decade ago, cooking with Nonna was a dream. It was an idea, and watching it grow into such a cultural phenomenon has been my greatest dream come true. And for inspiring that dream, I will forever be grateful to my Nonna. At her side, she taught me about so much more than cooking. My Nonna came to this great country as a 29-year-old widow with 2 small children to support from a small fishing village in Puglia. The only thing she hoped for was to survive, to make ends meet. We need our Nonna's love and guidance now more than ever, because as the world changes rapidly around us, the values that they teach us are timeless.
Thanks for watching this episode of Italics. I'm Anthony Tamburri. Arrivederci alla prossima puntata.